Let's see. It's just after 2 o'clock, so I just want to get started. But before we welcome our guest of honor, I just want to say a couple of words. This month, February 2024, actually marks our 5th anniversary. That's to say that I actually started hosting this IANDS Northern Virginia group 5 years ago this month, and that is quite a milestone, as you can imagine. So looking back now, we've interviewed a speaker, mostly an NDE, sometimes somebody that's speaking on the metaphysical in general, practically every month, bar maybe 1 month a year where we've just taken some time off. So that's, 12 times 5 is 60. I might have interviewed about 50 experiences by now in 5 years. So, well, it's gone by fast and it's been great fun, and everyone is a little different. And I always learn something new. Everyone has a little jewel, and I just extract that jewel and just sort of add it to my cup. And it's just so inspiring and so uplifting. So thank you so much for being part of this group. Some of you probably came in at the very beginning. When I first started, my very first session was at my home, and a gentleman by the name of Neil Helms from Virginia Beach had an experience. He drowned as a young boy and came to talk to the group, and he knew that I was starting the group, and he offered to come up from Virginia Beach specially to help kick off the group and give this a wonderful start. And so that was really amazing. And the very first session, the very first meeting, I had 45 people crammed into my home here. We managed it. After that, we were able to invite Eben Alexander and Raymond Moody. And for those presentations, we partnered with Unity of Fairfax in Oakton and were able to host, several hundred people for those presentations. And then, of course, 2020 struck, we had the advent of COVID, and then we had to move everything online. And we managed online for a couple of years. And only recently have we become what we call more of a hybrid, in that our presenters are now always joining us online, because I've exhausted all the ones that are within commuting distance to my home in this area. But a lot of our members are still joining us online, but we do have a few people who come in person, and actually you can't see them, but we have a nice group of people right here who are joining us. And that makes it very special, because we get together afterwards and have tea and coffee, and we visit and we chat about things as well. So it makes it, for more of a community. I'm sorry we can't do that with everybody. But also, after running the chapter for a couple of years, I did go to one of the IANDS conferences, and I was invited to become a board member for IANDS. And I joined, and I was a board member for about 1.5 years, and that was great fun, very insightful. And my group of volunteers helped last September 2023 with really trying to put behind the scenes, just be volunteers on the ground to try to get the IANDS National Conference up and running, and that was great fun as well. So it's been really interesting. And I also want to let you know that we have speakers lined up every month for the next year. So we're now February 2024, and I actually have speakers through April of 2025 lined up, practically every month except for one where we take a break. So the group is still moving. I still have every intention of keeping going. It's been very rewarding, and I hope that you will continue on this journey with us. And so anyone who's joining us for the first time, either in person or online, welcome. It's lovely to have you here. And I also want to say that a couple of housekeeping things. Most of our presenters allow us to record the presentations for posterity, but if you're joining us online and you want to protect your privacy, we're very mindful of that. So keep your camera switched off, but we do want to invite Q&A. So for those online, if you'd like to ask a question, please put it in the chat and we'll get to those. Those of you who are here, and so if you're online and you don't mind being on camera, then when the time comes, please raise your hand and we'll get to you. And just know that if you're on camera, you'll be seen and heard, and that will be recorded. So that's why I'm giving you the option to just write the question if you really don't want to be on camera. For those of you here, there's a pad couple of pads, write your questions and hand them to me if you want to remain anonymous. But if you'd like to be heard, you can come up to the mic and ask your question verbally. So anyway, that's enough about that, but everybody welcome again. And now I'd like to get to our guest of honor. And it's with great pleasure that I'm introducing Elle Serumaga today. She had a near-death experience some time ago, and it occurred after she became septic and suffered complete organ failure. That was an extraordinary experience. She traveled to a different planet and through space, saw Jesus, and accessed the Akashic Records, and we're going to hear all about that. But the experience was such that it also, I think, propelled her to become a doctor, a doctor of osteopathy. Is that correct? So she's going to tell us about that as well. So without further ado, it's with great pleasure that we welcome you here today, Elle. So take it away.
Hi, thanks for having me here. Well, I'd love to share my experience. It happened in 2015, and essentially I was traveling from California to go home to spend some time with family. I almost didn't go because I was feeling a bit under the weather. And it was actually my daughter that prompted me for us to continue with our plans. So in coming to Illinois, of course, you plan on doing activities with family and things like that. But I started becoming more and more symptomatic. And I went to the hospital, and I was sent home with antibiotics, mild infection, things like that. And then I continued to progressively feel worse. So it felt more serious. Went back to the hospital, and this time I was admitted. When I was admitted into the hospital, I was put on, some other medicines and started to feel better. And then something happened that shouldn't have happened, and I began to crash. And I don't know if people have heard the code blue, but the code blue was going off, and I was going in and out. So I kept on yelling, "Is that for me? Is that for me?" Because the nurses came in and were trying to stabilize my breathing. And I couldn't even tell that there was something serious going on with my body. I felt incredibly that I didn't have any pain or anything. And so subsequently, my breathing was stabilized for a little while, but kept on becoming unstable. So I was transferred to another hospital because I was deteriorating and becoming septic. And so when I was becoming septic, my body started getting, all of my functions began shutting down. After the fact, I kind of learned that after some time, they looked into doing a dialysis because my kidneys were shutting down. They looked into a lung transplant, which I didn't qualify for because they had put me on life support because I was dying. So, and when you're on life support, with a lung transplant, you have to be able to walk and move around so that the new lungs can function, and I wasn't in that state. So for that reason, I was given a less than 1% chance of survival because I was in the coma on life support for about 2.5 months. They had exhausted all of their options, and they could not figure out what else to do. So my head was shaved to check for brain activity. And then after that, they decided that they were just they had to let me go, even though my family, of course, was trying to get them to continue to try. They had to let me go. So it came the day around in September. And for this reason, September is significant for me. But came a day in September, that weekend was the second time that everyone was told that I was going to die because, they were pretty much going to unplug life support. And so people came in from all over to say goodbye again, because that had happened previously. And after that happened was at that particular time, and I'm telling you all of these things that are happening on the outside world first, so that you can understand what was going on the inside world, and which is where I learned that the universe and our connection to the universe actually exists. So on the outside world, this is all happening, and I was taken off the life support, began to crash, and then all of a sudden began to breathe again. And my the breathing, the measurement of breathing began going up and up. And so they switched me onto an oscillator so that my breathing could be supported, and to see if I would fully come to. So while all of this was happening, and in the coma, I traveled in and out of my body on various occasions. And as I was leaving forever, other events happened. So when I left my body, I was greeted by 3 guides. First of all, one of the guides looked like my daughter and was kept there to anchor me. And I was told she wasn't my daughter, but it was good to have her essence in front of me the entire time so that it would help me to continue to fight. And then there was a male guide and a female guide. The male guide kept on telling me to merge with different things. So I would be told to merge with a tree, for example, and I was told to merge with a lily and to merge with a fish, but it was not a fish in the ocean. It was a fish in a tank. And so when I didn't know what merging was, but what I discovered was that when you are in a realm of consciousness and spirit, anything is possible. So when my guide told me to merge, what happened was that I was kind of pushed into that existence, into that organism. And the reason why I was pushed into that organism was so that I could learn that everything living is conscious. So I learned that trees are conscious from the perspective that they actually have they have personality, they have intelligent thought, they have wisdom, they carry a lot of information about our history. And at that time, I was told that in the future, there would be experiments on trees in order to try to communicate and try to extract information about our history and lots of different things. Now, going forward after my event, I would say, let's see, this is 2024. So right around maybe October or so of 2023, I remember seeing an article that scientists are now doing experiments on trees, and they have found that they actually have an ocular part that we have in our eyes. They have it all over their entire body. So that means that they could see people, they could recognize faces, and they can actually communicate. But my guide had told me that trees are on a different frequency and they have a different presentation in life and in this dimension. So that's why they don't need to move around to get their energy. They don't need to eat with a mouth in order to continue to grow and survive. that they're highly evolved, actually. And so that's why they're able to be still, get their nourishment from the sun, the energy, and in the ground. And so that's why trees are the way they are. When I was merged into a lily, um, it was more, it was more like very happy thoughts, very simple, happy thoughts, and very not a lot of complication, and an emphasis on the sun. So I got an opportunity to feel what it was like to be a lily, that they're not just a piece of greenery floating in water. They live, and they actually observe. Because when I was in a lily, I was observing people walking by and observing things around me. But of course, I didn't have a mouth or anything, so I couldn't communicate. And then when I was a fish in a tank, honestly, that was probably the best experience of all of the merging. And the reason why is because the fish in the tank, you know how you just are in your life, you have those moments where you're just kind of thinking a lot, and you're thinking about the things that you have to do. You're thinking about just a lot. And being a fish in a tank was just very simple. Everything was just a simple mind, simple thoughts. And it was just very, you know, no agenda at all or anything. It was just pretty much existing. And that was kind of freeing to be able to be that. So the guide, the male guide, took me through the Akashic Records, which that was a part of the Akashic Records. It's a period of where you kind of review things in your life, and then you also go through different experiences. And before my particular experience, I always said if something ever happened to me and I died, the first thing that I would want to do is ask God all of these various different questions. So the other thing that the guide showed me was kind of the back room of the world, and various different things that are not as pleasant, but I was kept protected from some of those things. So for example, I and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this because I don't know if this is, going to be on a YouTube or anything like that.
Just so I can jump in, it will eventually go on our YouTube channel, but we can also edit depending on what it is you're going to tell us.
Well,
I'm in
I'll tell,
suspense.
I'll tell you, and then you can edit it out if you,
All
you
right.
know, if you prefer. But I saw things having to do with the sex trade in the world and how it was connected from, a big production in Asia to the United States. And um, I saw various different like trauma and sadness from people who were going through that. And I saw a building where certain things were taking place. And I wasn't I wasn't in the trauma because it wasn't Akashic Record, so I was protected. My guide would kind of keep me as an observer and take me out of that situation if I started to feel any sense of emotional distress. And I also saw, which I had no idea about this before my situation, it was just not something I really thought about, organ harvesting. I saw a building that was a white building in in it was in I think it was in an Indian country, and I saw some people going in. Some people were kidnapped, and some people were um, volunteered themselves because they needed money for their family to have organs taken for. I guess there's an organ trade, and So I saw that, and various different things having to do with the back rooms of the world. And so I thought about all of these different things because I was trying to rectify why all of this was happening and why we lived in a world like this. And I was trying to rectify whether or not it was worth staying because, of course, I wanted to see my daughter and I wanted to see her grow up, and I wanted to see all of the amazing things that I felt that she was going to do. But I also felt really bummed out about the world as well and just where things are. So my guides were kind of showing me, yes, these things exist. You asked to know, here's the truth. But in life, our existence is worth it. Our existence and the things that we experience, it's worth it regardless of the world. Despite the world, we are worth something, and we're worthwhile to make a contribution. And we can't control what happens in the world, but we can control ourselves. So as as I, went back into my body when I heard singing and things like that, and I was later told that some people that I knew from the church I used to go to came to my room and they were singing songs over and over again. So I went back in and I heard them singing and um, left again when I was in a procedure room and saw my body on the table. I heard the doctors talking about the terrible state that I was in and that I was not going to make it, and something about my heart as well. And I was kind of arguing with them, but they couldn't hear me. And I was trying to, kind of plead my case with them, but of course they couldn't hear me. And, to continue trying. And when I left again, when my guide called me out, I went through space and I saw a nebula, and it was so beautiful. And I remember it was only after I started flying, after I started flying, that I was thinking, wait, where's my body? And I looked down and I had no body, but I could look out and I could see that I had eyes, like I had vision. So I was, thinking to myself, I know who I am, I'm conscious, but I'm in space. And so I didn't really think about oxygen at that time, but I realized that I was an orb. And as soon as practically almost, right around that time, I ended up going to a different planet and my guide was there. And when I was in this different planet, my body was not in the same form. And I asked my guide what was going on. And I was told that I'm a different frequency than the frequency of this particular planet. So I didn't, my energy pattern was not in sync with the energy pattern of the planet. So I was a bit deformed, according to them. But I watched these beings just from, from a place, off. It was in a city that had huge buildings and there was a lot of light. And I saw these beings with very white, almost translucent skin, but some of them had different colors glowing from within. And like I've said before, after you have an event like this, or at least me, I tried to analyze all of these different things that I saw. And I didn't know if those particular colors represented like a certain family group or a certain like hierarchy, or something like that, but they glowed from within. And so after leaving that planet, there were a lot of other things that happened, but the most significant part, that when I went back to analyze everything, that I think was closer to the end, because when you go through a near-death experience, there's not really any sense of time. Like, I was told that it had been 2.5 months since I was in the hospital, but to me, it felt like an entire life that I was living. And so I didn't really have a good concept of time. So, but what I do know is I came, and this is according to my own understanding of what happened in the events of what was happening outside versus inside. There came a time where I was in a room, and I've since realized that, and I'm going to reference the Bible. The Bible says, "In my Father's house, there are many rooms." I came to learn that rooms are dimensions, first of all. So when I was in this room, my guide told me to reach out my left hand. So I just reached it out. And at that particular point, I kind of felt like a child, meaning that I felt like my emotions were not very anchored, meaning very ambivalent. And so I was just following orders, basically. I extended my left hand, a silver sphere appeared in my hand, and then around that time, uh, Jesus, which I've since come to learn, Jesus's real name is Yeshua, not Jesus. So if you're saying Jesus, don't say that any longer. There's a whole bunch of other information in regards to that, and which I can talk about another time. But so anyway, he was in his light body was there, and I was told that I was very loved, and that everything was going to be okay. I was told about certain things that were going to happen if I came back. I was told, and that was those things were just kind of like preparation, but my perspective was very kind of like a child, like, oh, that's interesting, like not really absorbing the gravity of the situation. And then a light that was brighter than the sun and white panned around the room that I was in and made a tunnel shape. And my guide just kind of stood next to me, and I turned to the tunnel, and I stood there and just kind of appreciated the tunnel and was kind of resigned to whatever was going to happen. I thought about my daughter, but I was also kind of like, well, I don't know what's best. Whatever is best is what will happen. And then all of a sudden, I was told I was going back and it wasn't my time. And then the light just kind of retracted back. And that was the last thing that I remember before I was awake. And, like I said before, I went back afterwards and analyzed and tried to, different things that were happening. I stayed quiet about my experience for quite a while. I only recently started talking about it as of last year, because I never knew anything about near-death experiences. It felt really weird to me. And I have some religious family, and this did not seem like a religious experience. So there were lots of reasons why I didn't say a lot of things, but I learned a lot of information, which we can talk about after, but I wanted to tell you what happened first.
Okay, wow. Um, Were you a religious or spiritual person before you had your experience?
I would say that I was on a journey. For some time, I was a part of a very fundamental church. But I was always, spiritual, but kind of gravitated in towards a more traditional, thought and belief system. And then, but it didn't fully resonate with me. There were other questions that I had. There were other things that I believed that I kind of suppressed. And so I would say it was more of like a journey.
Have you come back with any particular gifts? Were you cured from your ailments?
Well, the thing is that what was happening to my body, and if you think about it, when you're in a complete organ failure, your cells are dying off. You're becoming necrotic. Your organs are dying. So for example, your kidneys, your lungs, everything is dying. My daughter told me that she would look at the pink foam. There's in the life support machine, there's foam that they extract, which is actually CO2 that goes into the machine, which are artificial lungs. And that pink foam means that there's a lot of CO2. On a lab chart, your maximum CO2 for a person is supposed to be 35. Mine was over 200. So if it's over 35, you could have brain damage. And over 200, I was pretty much expected to be in a vegetated state. So everything was dying. And then that experience that I had healed me because everything started to regenerate. I don't have any kidney issues now. I don't have, I don't have brain damage. When I woke up, my tracheotomy healed in 24 hours and kind of freaked my doctor out. My feeding tube took about 2.5 to 3 days to fully close up, which was also very odd once they took it out. So lots of different things happened, but I was also told certain things were going to adjust in my life. So later on, I was triggered with autoimmunity, but in general, I was in a situation where I was becoming necrotic, and those particular parts of my body I don't have trouble with any longer.
Did they ever diagnose what the problem was in the first place that led you to sepsis and coma?
Yes. We figured out what happened, but it's not something that I could talk about.
Okay. Okay,
Mhm.
that's fine. Did you come back when you say that you were shown certain things? Did you come back with a memory of those things, or have you forgotten them?
No, that's the strange thing is when I came back, I was talking to people as though everything that I had experienced and information that I'd given was still in real time. Even though I was in a different existence again, I was back in my own reality. So there were things that I was told, like I said, for example, that everything was conscious. Um, some of the other things I was told was that we all share one God or Yahuwah, which I've come to understand is the real name of God, but that we did have help from other intelligent life with our evolutionary process. So that's one of the things. I was told that Earth is a kind of a seed bank of lots of different organisms from other places. Some of the other things I was told was that, God is the creator of God is the creator of science, and God does not have a particular religion, and that, but is okay with there existing lots of different religions, but is not okay with people attacking each other because of their religious beliefs. So the reason why God allows that to exist is because it's intended for us to learn how to worship in the way that we need to worship, or the way that we feel is best for, you know, the things that we've come to believe, but also honor each other's differences, honor each other's um, belief system. And when we can do that, then we'll elevate as a culture, as a society together. And the role and the reasons why we're here is because we need to start evolving consciously, and we need to start elevating spiritually. And I also was told that it's really urgent right now. We're in a particular time in the universe, batch of time in our development as a planet and as a culture, where this needs to be the focus, as though we eat every day. So just as eating every day is important, this needs to be the focus every single day, where we make sure that we have a meditation practice every day, and we don't go a day without it, that we learn to listen to what's around us, because there are many clues and metaphors in life that help us to get better understanding about how to go about our lives. And we need to make a decision, draw a line in the sand as to who you're going to be. We need to decide how that presentation is going to be going forward. So those are some of the things that I had learned. And of course, other things that I told you about before, that yes, there are other intelligent life in the universe, and they are interested in us, in our development, and things like that.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, Elle. My goodness. I do want to encourage everybody to bring their questions, please, because we're launching into that Q&A session already. You did mention that there were 3 guides. One was your daughter, or was like your daughter, just to help you feel comfortable and feel grounded. And then there was the male guide, who basically took you through the Akashic Records and the sex trafficking and the organ harvesting and all of those wonderful things. But you also talked about a female guide was there as well. There were 3. You didn't mention the female guide, just while people are thinking of their questions. Can you tell us a little bit about her?
Sure. She was like an older spirit, and I did see a couple of family members as well, but she was more of a her feminine energy taught me about how to coexist, and how to reach out to feminine oriented things. So she was more quiet, but also very and very motherly, but also very kind of gave a gentle nudge and provided gentle energy whereas the male guide, he didn't speak much, and he was everything was telepathic, but it was just kind of like he would just say merge, and I would merge with something. So he seemed a little bit more like more emotionally detached, even though I know that he wasn't, but he was just more straightforward, I guess.
It sounded as though he really wanted to show you a lot of things. Did you have a desire to see all of those things, do you think? Was that coming from your own personal interest in the Akashic Records?
Yeah, I didn't really know much about the Akashic Records beforehand. All of this happened, but the only desire that I had was times where I said in life, up until that point, oh, well, if I'm going to die, then I want to ask God about this, that, and the other. But other than that, I kind of put it out of my mind and kind of focused on life and, just normal life stuff.
Yeah.
So I know that those were things that I was curious about, but I wasn't overtly curious about it. It was more like a covert curiousness.
Let's talk about what you mentioned as far as there being other intelligent life around that's wanting to help us, and the Earth is a seed bank.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of talk about ETs. There's a lot of talk about Earth, humanity having lost its way.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us more about that.
So we were not supposed to be here. We were meaning that we're a bit off track. And this wasn't the intention of where things were supposed to go. There's been a lot happening over the years where we've kind of been derailed, and it's mainly because of various different agendas that have kind of stripped away a part of our connection to our soul, which our soul is deeply connected to the universe. We have a lot of power in our bodies and a lot of power in our souls and in our consciousness to really affect a lot of change, not just here on the earth, but also in the universe. We have completely forgotten about that connection, or we're disconnected from it because we're in a matrix-like society that kind of is training us to be wrapped up and focused on things of the day-to-day instead of living from a place of where our soul really is. For example, you see my body, my aura, and this is a scientific physics fact, actually extends 2 to 3 feet out of my body. You can't see that 2 to 3 feet out, but it's there. And that aura is actually a part of my soul and a part of my body. And if it's extending 2 to 3 feet out, it interacts with the daily world differently than my physical body, my skin, and my organs, my body. So if we're not aware of that 2 to 3 feet out, then we're not going to know how to utilize it to manifest, to help bring about change, to love, to execute a lot of things that need to be executed in the world, okay, or to even use our full power, what we've been designed to do. This is what we've actually been designed to do, to use this 2 to 3 feet plus our physical bodies. And one of the reasons why we are so special is because we can exist in 3D, but we can also exist in 5D and more. And we're the type of beings, not all beings can exist in 2 different dimensional realities and frequencies, but we're very special because we can do that. And that's one of the things that I've come to understand. We have no idea about the capability of our power, and we're not using it. So again, I mean, I'm sure there are people of all different religions. I'm going to reference the Bible here, but there's one thing in the Bible that says, ask, seek, and knock. So we hear those things and we just kind of like, oh, okay, well, ask, seek, and knock. So that means I need to ask questions, but are you really asking the questions? Are you really asking, who am I? What is my full capability? What do I do with this other 2, 3 feet of my body and soul that I don't even pay attention to? What happens when you don't pay attention to part of your body and you don't use it? It develops atrophy and you're not able to use it any longer. So as a society, we've become atrophic. We we have spiritual atrophy. So that's why it's important for us to ask all of these questions and be like a child. Again, I'm going to reference the Bible again. When it says to be like a child, it's not just the Bible doesn't just say that to say, oh, be obedient, be like a kid. No, be like a child in your wonderment of life. Be like a child where you're asking questions. What does a toddler do? They ask, well, why is this way? And if you tell them that that's that way, then they may have another question and another and another. They don't just stop there.
One of the worst things of becoming an expert is you think you know so much and you start to close yourself down to so much. And so there's a certain wisdom in just remaining open and somewhat innocent so that you allow, continue to increase your knowledge rather than think that you know so much. The questions are coming in, which is wonderful, but you did allude to the idea that, we're off track, here, somehow we've lost our way. So that suggests that there was a different kind of plan, or we were essentially on a different kind of journey. Something has got us off track. Can you give us some specifics? Were you shown any specifics? Are we talking about World War II? Are we talking about nuclear, the atom, the atom bomb? Are we talking about anything in specifically that got us off track?
It's my understanding that mainly what got us off track is agendas of, different people that have been in power over the years. And this is going back to even like the Middle Ages, for example, the changing of texts or the hiding of other spiritual texts. It's been a culmination of over and over again, a focus more on control than and suppressing elevation and education than it has been on, empowerment. So
that suggests, political regimes, but would you also say that some mainstream religions have done that to some extent without trying to sound sacrilegious?
Yes, it's true. And that's where it stemmed from, some of the agendas. And that's mainly what I was referring to more so than political, is because everything, like they say, listen to the metaphors that you have become familiar with over time. They're there for a reason. And then one metaphor is everything starts at home. Where's home? Your spirituality. Where do these agendas start? Spiritual corruption. And so, lots of it's, and like I said, I since came to learn that about Jesus's true name and God's true name. And when I learned the history of the fact that the initial names that we're familiar with came more from the Greek text, and how the word Lord actually means Baal. Words have meaning, and we're speaking a lot of these things into existence, but because we're not asking questions about life and our existence, we just continue to go on obliviously worrying about our 9-to-5s and all of these other things, not realizing that we're little by little destroying our own existence because we're not really focused on the deeper things. So we have to, we have to continue to explore that. Religions have exploited our true presentation, the way that we're supposed to exist here on earth, and our relationship with Yahuwah, which is God. And instead of helping us to become more elevated and understand. But it's not just religions, though. It's a combination of, starting at home, religions, political agendas, cultural agendas, lots of different things. And we have to kind of make the decision to find our way out of that muck, basically.
Okay. So Phil is asking, I mean, he says that in your presentation, you said the Earth was seeded by ETs and that you astro traveled to another part of the universe where you observed beings. Do you believe that the beings that you saw are the ones who seeded the Earth? And also,
No.
do you believe that the beings represent a more spiritually evolved species? And if so, does humanity's evolution of consciousness is that trending towards something similar to, is our consciousness trending towards something similar to that species?
Okay, let's break apart that question. So,
So do you believe that the beings that you observed seeded were the ones that seeded the Earth?
no, they weren't the ones that seeded the Earth.
Okay.
And it's not so much that ETs seeded the Earth. They helped us to evolve. They helped to change our evolutionary process by assisting it in some manner, whether that be like DNA manipulation or something like that.
Okay, interesting. Is this also part of the idea that ETs were the ones who necessarily helped create the pyramids, that humanity wasn't going to be able to do something like that by itself? Because there's Dolores Cannon.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think people like Dolores Cannon, if I'm not misquoting her, would in her work suggested that that's why a lot of ancient primitive civilizations have references to gods from the sky, but not necessarily a religious type of god, but more the ETs coming and bringing ideas regarding crops, bringing ideas regarding just the survival of the species, as it were. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes. And one of the things that I thought it was specific to me, but I've since found that other NDEers have the same thing. You have a sensation or you acquire a clairvoyance, which is a knowing. So there are things that I may not have necessarily been told in my NDE, but I continue to be told different things or I hear different things. And there's something that goes off in me or resonates saying, that's true or that is not true. That's the knowing. What Dolores Cannon said was true. And what other people have said in regards, I've come to understand that it is true. I've come to understand that there is a lot about Egyptian history for various agendas that we're not being told, and that is being hidden for whatever reasons. But there is an ET presence, and definitely humans did not build all of those pyramids. So I have come to understand that that is correct.
And you're also suggesting that ETs might have had some part in manipulating our DNA.
Yes.
So that puts Darwin's theory of evolution on its head to some extent. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Natural progression. We came from the swampy soup, and then we've evolved into these sophisticated 21st century beings.
Yes.
There's been
yeah, that's not true.
okay.
There's a certain degree of truth in some of the things that he said, but he's not completely correct about the theory of evolution is wrong the way that it is.
Okay, just want to go back to the second part of Phil's question, and then we'll move on. These beings that seeded the earth, are they going to be the ones, or are they the ones that are helping lead us spiritually to become more evolved?
Some of them are, and extraterrestrial species are like humans, where there's some of them that are good and are for us, and there's some that are against us. There are species that are definitely for us, are highly evolved, are benevolent and focused on us evolving, and have presented themselves in different forms and different people over time to help us to become more consciously aware and to help move our society into a more evolved place spiritually.
Okay.
Before we talk more, though, I wanted to see if I answered that other person's question fully.
Phil's actually online with us at the moment. If you want to give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, Phil, are you happy with the answer? Oh, he's giving us a nice thumbs up.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you so much. Technology is wonderful sometimes, isn't it? Okay, great.
I
So,
feel like it's a blessing when people are asking questions because asking questions leads to a lot of evolution.
well, let me also say that that's our value proposition to sort of step into the financial marketing world. The fact that we have this group and we can ask you questions in real time make it so different from just watching a YouTube channel where everything's already canned
Right.
and done ahead of time.
Yeah.
Angela's asking a question that I think you've sort of really answered already, and that's, do you know if the ETs are part of our spiritual evolution in the future? It sounds as though, yes, some are, but some are not.
Mhm.
Now, help me here because I always get stuck with the ET issue. I'm wondering, are these ETs sort of our planetary neighbors that in some way they are sort of part of God's creation in this time and space, that they are physical beings of a different nature, but physical nonetheless, and they will experience death? Or are the ETs actually beings that have had physical death and transitioned across the veil? Which is it?
Okay. So what I've come to understand is that ETs, other species, we all have one God or Yahuwah. Okay. And the reason why is because there's only one source of energy. There's not multiple disconnected sources of energy. When the ETs came in antiquity, some people have said that, or at that particular time, some believed that that they were gods, that they're not gods. They're another species as well. There's some, like the Anunnaki, for example, they're actually a species of ET. They're a group of ETs or classification, the classification of ETs. The ETs are not from a they're not spiritual beings in regards to the fact that they are like spiritual uh, guides, but they are societal guides. They are guides for evolution, for development, but they have a God as well. So they're not like ancestors, similar to what we would call ancestors who are deceased. They're not spirits, basically. They're actual beings that are in existence and have various different lifespans.
Okay, all right, very good. So Linda has a question. Did the lily tree and fish have auras? If so, for what reason?
That's a really good question. I don't recall them having an aura, but they probably did, but I don't remember that aspect of it. And that question makes me smile because nobody has ever thought to ask me that question at all. And that makes me think about that particular experience. But I don't recall them having an aura, but if every life form has an aura, so they probably did.
So the auras that humans have,
Mhm.
that encapsulates our energy.
Mhm.
And the reason for different colors is what?
Well, the different colors were on the species. Oh, you mean the different colors of people's auras?
Yeah, I'm thinking more generally now, not so much.
Oh, yeah. So the different colors represent different reflections of our chakra and what those meanings are. So, for example, if your aura is yellow, then it may um, represent and connect to that particular chakra, and the personification of that chakra, meaning, that chakra has to do with and this is just an example, communication. And so that day, you're highly aware in your communication, or you're really in your element, for example, with spirituality. So maybe your aura is purple that day or something like that.
See. So your aura can change almost the way your mood can change. Is that what you're suggesting? And so it's whatever's present in the heart and mind at any given time is going to be shining out through the aura as well as in the person's kind of the vibe that they give out, the feeling, the mood that they're experiencing. I see. I wasn't sure if it was kind of fixed,
No.
had to do with energy level, but it really has to do with, I guess, mood, a sort of an external um, metaphysical expression of mood.
Right.
You can see beyond the body, as it were. Okay.
Right. Which means that it's less about emotion mood
Okay.
and more about soul mood.
Soul mood. Oh, that's a good way of putting it. So soul mood. Okay. And so that can change. And can you be on it in a low soul mood versus a very high soul mood?
Yes.
Okay. And this is all reflected in, are there seven chakras? Is it reflected in the seven chakras?
They're actually more. They're what I've gotten is that there are 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are the main ones. The 9 are the big ones.
Okay, the nine are the main ones. Okay, great. So Linda also is asking, do you know why you were shown the sex trade and organ harvesting trade? Are you supposed to do something about it?
No, I'm not supposed to. I don't think I could do anything about it. But
Only
I
we can do something about it, yeah.
right. I was shown just because I asked about, basically my guide was answering questions for me that I had before my NDE experience. Like, you know how you see something on the news and you're like, what's going on with that? Or you see something and you're wondering, does this really exist? Do people really do that?
Yeah.
So that's why I saw those things to kind of just answer my question.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we have a couple of other questions here from Alifia. Can you talk more about the 5D world? How do you access this world? What are the best strategies?
Now, in my understanding, so everybody's talking about the 5D world as though it's over there and they want to move to that. We don't move to 5D. 5D is actually within us and around us, but we have to access it. And that again is a part of connecting with that extra us, that's the extra invisible us that's out here. Once we start asking questions, and that's why I say that it's like a blessing whenever somebody asks a question. If you think about it, having a child and watching their development is a metaphor for our life and development. The same way that God looks at us. A child says, I was looking at the trees and wonder how the leaves are growing. And the parent might say, wow, that's such a great observation, Johnny. I'm so proud of you for noticing that. Literally, God is treating us the same way, Yahuwah is treating us the same way. And so when we have all of these, different aspects of ourselves that we don't know. So when we ask the question, we get to know it. That's how you access the 5D. You tap into it. You don't go to it. You don't start here and run as fast as you can to get over to it. You just start doing the inner work and you start accessing that extra part of you that you don't see. That's how you get to 5D.
Right. Okay. Just going back to the sex trafficking and more sex trafficking, I think, and kidnapping. Matt makes the point that we actually, as a group, went to see the movie After Death, near-death experiences, and the same studio made a documentary, as it were, called Sound of Freedom about child sex trafficking and kidnapping. And he's asking, what do you think of those movies, the After Death and the Sound of Freedom? Do you know them, and what do you think of them?
I've never heard of the Sound of Freedom. I did, if it's the same movie that I'm thinking about, After Death, then that's the one about various different near-death experiencers, right?
I believe so. It's one that came out in the last 6 months, and I think it's Angel
Oh.
Studios is the name. There've been a few, but this was actually out in the cinemas kind of nationally, even though
Oh, that one.
that one more recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I didn't see the entire thing. But what I would say is that near-death experiencers from, the little part that I know of it, near-death experiencers not only have this experience, they go through a time where you're trying to rectify two different worlds and trying to figure out what you're supposed to do with this information and what you're supposed to and how you're supposed to live. And many of the things that you see can be traumatizing, but you have to kind of learn to deal with that particular trauma, and kind of um, just basically rectify two different worlds and experiences that not a lot of people have.
Mhm. Okay. So Anthony would like to ask a question. He's going to ask it through the mic here.
Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for everything you've shared to this point. You've mentioned or referenced the Bible a couple times. Would, as a follow-up to the ETs, the biblical angels and devils, would that equate to a similarity to the ETs, perhaps?
So your question is are the ETs the devils and the angels that we're talking about?
The good ones and the bad ones, yes. Would that be the
Is it
same metaphor maybe that's used in the
like a
Bible?
parallel, perhaps.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's like a parallel, definitely. As there are angels and demons, there are good ETs and bad ETs.
And then a follow-up on possibly on what's been hidden in possibly religion or items that have been taken away from us. I know the Book of Enoch, which was
Yes.
excluded from the Bible, which
Yes.
talks about the mating of humans and angels, sort of maybe something you're alluding to that's been hidden from us.
Yeah. I was going to recommend if anyone wants to kind of start over or go from where they are religiously, to start with reading the Book of Enoch, and then also even the Gnostic Bible, you and other texts as well. You would get a lot more out of truly what's going on than our current traditional Bibles.
Let me ask you, how do you are you familiar with A Course in Miracles?
Yes, I am.
And what's your analysis, evaluation of that?
I think that A Course in Miracles is from Yahuwah. I think that it's something that's definitely there to help us to transform ourselves. It's like the beginning step in helping us to unlock. It's not it's not the end all, but it's definitely a really good start.
Now, you said that you encountered Jesus or Yeshua. Did he impart anything in particular? Did you have conversations with him?
Well, he said to me that I was loved and that I was, that he was a part of when I was being told that it wasn't my time, generally expressing love towards me and just gratitude for my existence and just in general, a lot of love and things like that. But Jesus did not say, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, things like that.
Okay.
I felt more of a sense of reverence in front of him. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. That's just a wonderful segue to my question from Angela. Have you been shown anything about the future?
Yeah, some of those things have already happened, because I was talking about them starting in November of 2023. And so what happened is in November 2023 was when I started deciding to share about my experience, but I was really reluctant because first of all, I'm not somebody who likes to get a ton of attention for a lot of different things. And I was given information, but I wasn't sure, you know, if I said this, is it really going to come true? Like I had a hard time convincing myself that these things that I was told were going to come true were actually going to come true. I had my own spiritual rectification and conversations, and my guide kind of nudging me and saying, you need to be brave, you need to say something. So I started talking about it, and what I'd gotten then was that everybody needed to kind of prepare their hearts. A lot of strange things were going to happen because, and if you were very traditionally minded, you're going to have a hard time struggling with a lot of these things. And I told people there was going to be alien disclosure in about April. It was going to start. I told people that, another one of the things was that there was going to be a major contact event by the end by the end of 2023, the beginning of 2024, there was going to be a major contact event. And then I also said things about like the trees, about some things with Kim Jong-un, for example, and alluded to, but didn't directly talk about the fact that, what 2024 and the contentious spirit of the political climate was going to be. So I started talking about that in 2023, right before, this was probably about 2 months before, all of a sudden we had these silver spheres showing up, and then the spy balloon, and then the train wrecks, and then, which everybody's starting to forget already, and then all of these weird things that kept on happening. And people were saying, oh my gosh, I can't understand all of this weird stuff. And then in April, we had our first disclosure and meeting at Congress, and whistleblowers coming out. And so I was getting emails of people who were like, oh my gosh, you said this, or, this was true, or do you think this was going to happen? And then at the end of the year, it came to December, nothing had happened regarding a major contact event. So I was like, okay, well, maybe that was just gas, or maybe something, it wasn't going to manifest. I mean, timelines shift all the time. On January 1st, and it's come to my understanding that what happened in Miami was actually a contact event. It's not teenagers. And these things, a lot of these things have already happened. The only thing that I decided to kind of focus my intention elsewhere on what to do in between now and then for personal development and preparation and helping others to do the same. I will say in 2025, we're also going to have a major alien event. So that's one of the things that I could say is going to, and that I'm comfortable saying is going to be taking place.
Okay. Wow. All right. Changing the subject a little bit, but in the metaphysical world, did you learn anything around soul families? Alethea asks.
Anything specifically around soul families, or
just in general? I think. Was there any connection to reincarnation, soul families?
Well, reincarnation is true, and the reason is that energy never dies. So the extension of our energy goes for many lifetimes until our soul is refined. And some of the people that we're interacting with in this particular life, we may have known them in another life. And many different things happen where we might encounter some of the people in this life that we've known in a different life, because we have a soul connection, either soul connection, a soul contract, or we're bound with them as a celestial being. One of the things that I came to understand was that planets and stars are celestial beings, and they are also conscious, just as the earth is conscious.
So conscious as, I mean, because when we talk about consciousness, we're talking about being self-aware.
Yes.
Okay. Do you mean self-awareness, or do you mean that they're sort of sentient in some way?
Sentient.
Okay. But not necessarily self-aware in the way that we are, at least we are.
Meaning that doesn't have emotions necessarily like humans have emotion, but have self-awareness and are sentient, meaning they have thought and preferred intention. And by preferred intention, I mean a desire to evolve instead of to be stagnant. And that's why the earth is trying to evolve.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about that. So let's talk about Gaia. Let's talk about global warming. Let's talk about all the natural disasters. Is there a connection between, humanity's contribution to global warming and Gaia's need to evolve? Are those working in tandem? Are they in conflict? Can you speak to that?
Yes, I can speak to that a little bit, but not completely, okay? Because some of the things, like I said, I keep getting myself different stages of understanding, but I'll tell you what I understand up until now from what I've already gotten. So basically, in general, there is light energy and there's dark energy. The dark energy is necessary because there would be no concept of light if the dark weren't around. But there's some agendas that are dark that have created a desire to de-evolve things, to suppress, to get in the way of because of agendas. And ultimately, regardless of whether we see somebody, is all for climate change or against climate change awareness or whatever, removing those things, it's just a matter of light and dark, and what's happening and what's encouraging those types of thoughts and encouraging certain decisions. So then we have also certain ETs that are good. We have ETs that are bad. So the world and the universe is made up of teams. And that's why it's good to do all of the personal work so that you know what team that you're on. And the reason why you have to know what team you're on is because you'll attract and connect to that particular energy. So for example, let's say, somebody's on team dark and team light. So team light might decide that they're going to connect with certain energy on a regular basis, which leads to them making certain decisions, speaking about certain things or whatever in life, contrary to the person that's on team dark. It could be as grand as spiritual enlightenment and awareness, or it could be as simple as being mean to somebody who's homeless on the street. So there are various different levels. Either way, it's the same thing, light and dark energy. And those are the things that kind of govern our society and the way that we make decisions. It all comes down to energy. So then you have to decide which energy do you resonate with more because you're feeding that particular energy. And that is the thing that creates our society as a whole and all of the things that are going on. So it's not so much that, for example, again, climate change is a specific agenda that, is meant to destroy the earth, etc. It's more about enough people respecting the earth and honoring the earth and making their part of the things that they find important in life and that they encourage to be respectful, basically. It's an energetic thing. So if you're respecting the earth, you're more than likely respecting the people around you. You're respecting animals. You're respecting, lots of different things. And that's light. That's the energy of light. And that's makes you in resonance with that particular energy. The climate issue is just a side effect of all of that.
Of the negative energy.
Of the negative energy, right.
If we were to sort of run with that, are you suggesting that all the negativity in the world is actually influencing maybe Gaia to the extent that maybe, this is a little bit outlandish, it's actually contributing to a lot of the natural disasters? So in other words, if there were a lot more light than dark, people were more in the sort of light space rather than the dark space, is it possible that there'd be fewer natural disasters? Could there be that much of a connection between us and Gaia?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Wow.
And I'm saying that's why I'm saying that everybody is trying to run out there to kind of like save things, find things, whatever. That's why it's so important for everybody to understand, start in here, because your power here is so exponential. You would be able to get to the point where you could think, let it rain in the Sahara, and it will rain. If everybody is doing that, that will transform all of this nonsense. And it will, or I should say enough people, it doesn't have to be everybody, but enough people doing it will transform a lot of this nonsense. And that's what this time is about. This time is about all of these strange and weird things happening that are making people think, oh my gosh, life is not as I thought it was going to be. What do I do? Let me run to something. Let me dig deeper. Let me try to find out. And it's not because there's a universal agenda to scare people into, spiritual development. It's to help people to be urgent because the earth, the universe needs us to be that for ourselves and for the earth and the universe. So it's just trying to prompt us where enough of us collectively say, okay, I'm going to do this work. I'm going to become I'm going to be on that team, basically.
Okay. Well, my segue from Phil here, is there anything more that we can do beyond what you've already discussed to nudge humanity back to its intended evolutionary path?
I would say that whenever you learn something, share it with somebody else. That's one of the best things that you can do. And another thing that I learned in my experience is I started realizing that everybody's just on a journey. So if we take a step back, and if somebody was not so nice to us, we can have all the human emotions, we could get mad or whatever, things like that. But if you really become more objective about everything, you realize, everybody's on a journey, and some people are aware and some people are less aware, and some people are not aware at all. And that's essentially what it comes down to. It takes away the personal aspect of the attack and makes it more about light and dark energy and the fact that this is not about you. This is about just existence of us all, basically.
Mm-hmm. This is a huge question, but how has your life changed since you've come back?
Well, I decided to study genetics and osteopathy. So that's one of the things. I'm not yet a doctor, so just to correct that, but I'm in the process of it. It's helped me to tap into more awareness. I've become more clairvoyant and clairauditory And I get information all the time. Sometimes I understand it right away. Sometimes I have to kind of like write it down or make a note of it, and then seek out understanding and try to learn more about this specific thing, because sometimes I don't always know why I saw what I saw or the information that I got. So then I have to seek it out. So it's made me more of a student of life as well. And then also made me more brave in giving that back out and feeling more of a sense of, what I learn, I need to share as well.
Mm. So help us here. I mean, you're studying to become a doctor of osteopathy as opposed to an MD. Is that correct?
Yeah.
There's a difference in that perhaps yours is perhaps still the medical path, the traditional medical path, but you're more holistic.
Yes.
Is that one of the main differences?
Yes.
Okay, and I see that there's some frustration in the medical field with obviously insurance companies, but just the general medical model, that obviously comes from the 18th century and just how we split the mind and the body, etc. I'm assuming that with your experience and your knowledge of the extraordinary, because you've touched the other side, as it were, and you're coming back with knowledge that most humans aren't privy to. Do you feel that that experience is going to inform your medical training, and that somehow you'll move beyond typical traditional medicine, even though you're doing a DO at the moment?
Yes. And your insight helped you to unpack all of that, what my general plan is. The reason why I decided to study genetics and osteopathy medically is because of what I was shown in my NDE, that genetically there are lots of things about our DNA that we're not aware of, that we are not tapping into, number one. Number two, if we did, we would be able to harness more of our own personal power, and we'd be healthier individuals. Number two, I was told that frequency, which is something that I learned about that I didn't go into a lot because there's just too much to go into of every aspect of my NDE. But frequency is extremely important. We're all frequencies. We're all different frequencies. And our source of energy, our Yahuwah, God, is also is all of the frequencies. If we tapped into frequency medically, we would be able to heal with frequency more often as a modality in medicine, instead of a lot of toxic approaches to medicine. So I intend to incorporate that into my practice of medicine and into my research of DNA, is frequency.
Okay, so can you help us understand frequency? Are you talking about vibrations? Are you talking about energy? Are these just interchangeable terms?
I'm talking about energetic resonances that are on spectrums of energy. Some people might be familiar with, say, for example, frequency tones. They're musical and mathematical tones in science and in physics. For example, 520H, they're hertzes, basically.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that is a sound, of course.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Suggesting that sound is very important. You're suggesting that sound can be very healing.
Yes.
But just help us a little bit understand. I mean, presumably you're saying that God, source, all that is all of those frequencies. It encompasses he encompasses all of those frequencies. Mm-hmm. We as lowly humans have a particular frequency energetic signature.
Right.
Is that sort of, I mean, what levels are there that we operate at, that we can perhaps aspire to? Is there a finite number of those?
Well, one of the things that I came to understand besides that is that God, source, Yahuwah, is egalitarian. There's no hierarchy. And understanding or the way that we've been culturally trained to believe spiritually that there's a hierarchy, that God is over here and we are, lowly beings, is more training and teaching culturally over time from the religious world. God is actually egalitarian and is just all of us are expressions of God in different forms. And God does not have an expectation for us, but is fully aware that we are godlets. That's our full capability to be godlets. And again, the metaphor for life and the way that we know this is in the metaphors of life, God has left us clues about who he, she, it is. That being said, one of those clues is our ability to birth children. Children have our DNA. They can't ever separate, even if the relationship may not be good. You can't separate the DNA from the child of the source. And then if you're looking at that child, you realize that you harness them and appreciate them and they're learning, but at some point they become their own person. And if you're a parent that's, really loves your children, your hope and expectation is that they're going to achieve more than you. They're going to be better than you. They're going to be more evolved than you are. So in the same way, God, we're kind of his extension and children, but we're not lowly. Our full presentation is that we can coexist as godlets in our expression, and then we can create. We have the ability to create as well, and to have a different expression. So. Back to the frequencies and hertzes, each of us have a different frequency, but we can also collectively have a frequency that resonates and elevates the entire universe. Will that ever happen? I don't know. I mean, we would all have to, to get on the same page, and we're all different, and we're all, we're a dysfunctional human society. But, if we, continue to try and work on ourselves and continue to spread that to others, then we have the hope of getting to that point.
You mentioned in your presentation that you encountered I think a planet with beings that were essentially sort of white, but there were different colors in the aura or in their physiological makeup, if you will.
Yeah.
But you weren't matching their frequency. They were on a different frequency from you. And so somehow it wasn't an easy understanding of them and what they were about.
The closest thing I can recall is, I don't know if anybody's seen, I saw it I think it was Arizona, where these people had an ET supposedly land in their backyard. And they were saying that they kept on glitching. They seemed like they would walk, but then they would like freeze and walk, and like they were having trouble, like they weren't in the right frequency. That triggered my mind, because that's essentially what I experienced when I was on this other planet, where my body wasn't, acting the same. Basically, it was deformed and kind of like glitching, basically.
So in my reading, spotty reading, I picked up that when you transition from this particular plane, the next plane, the next plane that you land at, as it were, is really based on your frequency when you transition here. So if I were vibrating at a low frequency, I'm going to go to a plane where other beings, that plane is essentially at a lower frequency. But if I were vibrating at a higher frequency, I would I would go to that. And it's because like attracts like, presumably.
Yeah. Like energy attracts like energy.
But we can presumably in our existence here increase our frequency. Is that correct?
Yes.
So would you say that somebody who is down and out, really negative, really hurting other people, is vibrating at a much lower frequency? Somebody who's on their path to trying to become an ascended master would then be naturally vibrating at a much higher frequency, even though they're on the same plane, in the
Yes.
same physical time and space, human
Yeah.
beings. Okay, so within this plane, frequencies across people can vary enormously. Is that
Mhm.
correct? But if
Yes.
you transition to the other side, then presumably the frequency, the different levels of frequency increase even more.
Yes. That's
Okay.
correct.
And is life about sort of evolving from one frequency in the sort of Buddhist nirvana like model where you're increasing your frequency and getting higher and higher and closer to source?
It's less hierarchical because we're already close to source. It's just a matter again as to whether or not we can feel it. So, for example, again, I just keep using this one because it's the simplest one that I know, but I'm sure there are lots of other really good examples. Let's say you're a parent, okay? You might hug your child and just love your child and, give them kisses all over their face. And then because maybe they're in their preteens and angsty, they just don't feel it. They still feel depressed. They feel angsty. They just feel they're not really feeling your love. So does that mean that the child is not close to you? No, they're close. They're right up under you. They're in your hug. They're in your embrace. Excuse me. So they're close. They just can't feel you. It's essentially the same thing.
Okay. I have a question here from one of our participants online. Do we meet God based on our conditioning? If I believe in a specific religion, do I tend to meet God in that religion's form?
No, what I understood was that no, that wasn't the case. And then honestly, it wasn't confirmed for me until after the fact, after my near-death experience and being back in society. There was a near-death experiencer that I know who's an atheist. When she had her near-death experience, she met several ascended masters, and she didn't even believe in them. So yeah, you don't. It's not based on your cultural expression or things like that.
Okay. Linda's asking, have you read Conversations with God? I think that's Hendricks.
Neil Donald Walsh.
Oh, Neil Donald Walsh. Sorry. Yeah. And if so, do you have a comment about it? Thank you.
I am aware of Conversations with God, and quite honestly, I have attempted to seek out reading it, but I haven't fully read it. But I like Neil Donald Walsh, and the things that I have seen, I completely resonate with what he's saying.
Yeah, and his story, if I remember correctly, is that he was really down on his luck. I think he lost his job because he had a car accident that and suffered a terrible injury, and because he couldn't work, even though he had insurance, he ended up losing his job, and because he lost his job, he was homeless. He had become estranged from his family, and was really down and out, and sort of basically, I think, asked God, what is this really all about? Where have I gone wrong? And I think he was sort of enlightened in the middle of the night, just had this download of information, and it resulted in the writing down of everything that he was receiving and then publishing, and that changed his life. And I think he's gone on to write other things as well. He's a very interesting character.
Yes, he is.
Sure.
And I tell people they don't have to have a near-death experience to get these particular wisdoms. There might be some things that might be unique to having a near-death experience, but like Neil, you can have transformation, and of course, I call them uploads, get uploads all of the time of real and tangible universal information from God.
So having had this experience, as much as you can in a nutshell, I mean, what is your philosophy of life now?
That's a broad question.
As I know, but I mean, what are some of the things that what are basic principles that you live by now? How has your life changed, and what's your basic belief system?
Well, the main thing is I'm trying to live my life from a place of what my soul needs and not so much what my personal life needs. Excuse me. So basically, there may be things that I would rather not do, but my guide says your soul needs this, so I will do it, basically. And realize that consciously speaking, I am humbled to a universal design more so than what I want to do in various different aspects. And when I honor that, I notice that I'm blessed even more so. And I also notice that other people are blessed, which makes me feel blessed as well, because then it gives me a sense of purpose and alignment with the overall plan, not the daily plan, not the, like the 9 to 5 plan or whatever, but the overall universal plan that I understood, that I learned about in my NDE. So then it makes me feel on track, basically.
And did you get any insight into past lives, your own past lives?
Yes. Yeah. A few things. Some of them I'm comfortable with sharing, and some of them not, but I know that I knew my daughter in multiple past lives, for example. Um, I knew that I was in Egypt in a past life, and there's something very unique about that. I died 3 times as a child. I was also an alien boy, um, in the type of alien that I looked like from the vision that I got was, which are the ones that are blue? They're very blue and have elongated heads.
I don't know. I'm
I'm
sorry.
telling you. Yeah.
No, we're getting some shaking of heads here. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So yes, I did get some awareness of some of my past lives.
Okay. All right. Did you know who your guides were before you had your NDE? Is a question.
No.
Linda.
Mm,
No.
no.
Okay. So we're sort of beginning to wind down a little bit here. This has been extraordinarily interesting. So what would you say to an individual who is really just trying to find their way? You
Mhm.
know, the ego, functioning on this plane is just not very satisfying. The typical sort of um, signposts for success, the job, the money, the car, the state, that isn't really working. They're not finding happiness. And they're trying to find their way, and they're trying to feed their soul. What suggestions would you have for people tuning in and in the future who will tune into this presentation? What would you say to them?
I completely feel that and understand that because that's how I felt before my NDE. I actually, wanted a break from life. I wasn't suicidal, but I understand those feelings very deeply. And looking back, if I had not had my NDE, I know one of the things that would have helped me to start getting to where I am now in my soul is some basic things like meditating daily is the first thing, because when you do, you start opening up your soul connection and understanding. I would read things like the Book of Enoch and the Gnostic Bible, or, for example, the Nag Hammadi, or some other very ancient, some other spiritual texts that you set aside some time to, even if it's once a week, just kind of dig into and allow yourself to bring up questions from your higher self and start making that connection. And that will change your perspective as you go about your day. You'll start to see things differently. When you see things differently, you'll start to make different choices. You'll start to process conversations and tap into a sense of your power and your bravery. You will also, another thing that I would do is be careful of what you put in your body. Try to eat as organic as you can. Try to eat things that nourish you. Try to stay away from, taking pills or things that don't serve you if you don't need them. And just try to be good to your body, because the body and the mind are one being, and your soul is connected to them both at this particular time. So that's what I would say would be a good start in trying to rise above the fray of everything that's going on.
And earlier you talked about how, our aura, I believe, expands 2 to 3 feet outside the physical body. And that if we were more aware of that, maybe how to acknowledge it, maybe how to harness it, be better off individually, but also as a species and humanity at large. How can we harness that? How should we think about that?
In doing some simple exercise related things to tap into it more, you can listen to frequency music or a frequency tone, or get a tuner and play frequency while you're meditating to help become more aware of that aura. But your aura just naturally, it's kind of like a light switch. When you turn on a lamp, the light bulb goes on just because it's just connected. There's nothing that you have to do other than just flip the switch, and it does what it's supposed to, which is to illuminate. So if you nourish a lot of these other things combined with doing certain practices that also increase that the elevation of your energy, it's automatically going to happen. You'll start to become more aware. And some people might even, depending on what your inner abilities are, you may become more clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairauditory, all of those things, just because you're just more tuned in and connected.
And what about physical illness, disease? What can we do? I mean, if the mind body are connected, are we bringing some of that on? Is it environmental?
Yeah.
What control can we have over that? Because in our model today, we're just beginning to wake up to the idea that the mind influences the body and influences disease.
Yeah.
And what would you say to that?
Well, a lot of things are environmental, and unfortunately, we live in an environment that is kind of set up to take us down physically a lot of the times. But the way that we can rise above that is to do some of those suggested things and to be mindful. And as we're becoming more powerful or stepping into our own power, to kind of set intentions for our own body to correct some of the things that we're having issues with, to heal ourselves, or to connect with a divine source to heal us. For me, I've gone in stages, and I'm not fully healed where I want to be healed, but I can walk now. I had to relearn how to walk. I had to relearn how to write. I used to have level, 11 pain constantly. And so in a combination of various different things, I've progressed to the point where I'm functional again, and I still have more to go that I'm working on, but it's a process. So I would say to not allow environmental things to stand in your way of believing that you can make that progress to being your most functional and healthy self.
So you must be aware of Bruce Lipton and his work with epigenetics.
Yes.
What's your opinion on that? That, we can change our genes essentially. It's not the other way around, that our genes necessarily dictate completely the outcome.
Well, one of the things I'm studying is epigenetic in nature. And that is the case to a degree. What I'm understanding through just education is that within your genes, it determines your ability to achieve certain things based on your DNA currently. For example, if you are prone to or have the ability to have a long lifespan, longevity, and living past 100, but you don't have any longevity genes, which is an actual gene, that you're probably less likely, regardless of what you do, to live to 100 or more. But, so I believe that there are that epigenetics is relevant to a degree.
I see. And what about people like Joe Dispenza and R.J. Spina? Those are two people who come to mind who were able to sort of come back from some devastating physiological and healing themselves. What do you say to that?
Oh, I watch Joe Dispenza now. I mean, there's so much that you can especially when it comes to frequency and energy of your body, and how you can harness that to help to heal your body. There's so much when applied can help to get to that place. And so I completely believe what Joe Dispenza is saying and what he teaches about.
Okay. And so what would your closing words be to the group today?
Thank you for having me, and I hope this helped.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for your presentation. It's been absolutely fascinating. And the fact that you came out of the closet, as it were, you went public in November of last year. That's just a few short months ago.
Yeah.
So that means that we are potentially one of the first groups, one of the early groups that you're sharing your story with. Am I right?
No.
Published a book.
She said 23, but she meant 22.
22?
Say that again?
So did you mean, when did you go public with your story?
It was November of, oh, I'm sorry, it was 22.
Okay, that's what. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, darn, I thought we were, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We still feel very special that you would take the time to speak with us. And by the way, I would like to extend an invitation into the future to have you back, because I would love to hear more about your studies and work as a DO. When do you think you might be finished with that training?
Well, God willing, within the next few years.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you're going to do wonderful things in the future. So we would love to have you back as you try to reconcile your experiences and knowledge from the other side to, this earthly plane, and how you can help humanity, understand more. So we would love to have you back at some point.
Before my official licensing, just so that all of you know, I will be doing experiments. So if there's anyone who wants to be a part of one, please.
I will. I'll sign up. I'd be a guinea pig. I mean it. I'd be happy to learn about what you're experimenting on.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to everybody who's joined us today. We will be reconvening at the end of next month, and we have another wonderful speaker. If you'd like to be on our email distribution list, please email me at angiewq09@gmail.com, angiewq09@gmail.com. Our meetup group has our upcoming speakers, but maybe a month or two ahead. If you want to find out who's going to be speaking over the next year, please email me. Thank you again, Elle. Take good care of yourself.
You too.
And it's been an absolute pleasure. Bye, everybody. See you next time. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Hi, Phil.
Bye.